is a nice way to start, because you can start to claim that real estate for what you want it to be. You can be a little bit aspirational. You can say, we want to widen the sidewalk, we want to take that space for a bike facility, we want to put the streetcar back. And then you can make it more permanent later. But this is what we did on Pennsylvania Ave, and it was a huge hit. And by the way, people thought I was crazy for wanting to put a bike lane down the middle of the street instead of on the side of the street. Again, I'm not an engineer, but to me it was logical. That's where the streetcar used to go. People used to board there and get off there. Why wouldn't you? And it's been a huge success because you have a great line of sight all the way down the street. How many people have ridden on it? Anybody? It's pretty pleasant, right? It's not scary, unless there's a taxi cab pulling a Yui, but we're working on that. By the way, that bike lane extends right by Treasury and the White House. The government needs to serve people more like a private sector company. And what I mean is that you should really have customer service. You should have true transparency. You should set goals and be honest when you miss the goal. It's okay to fail. If it's okay in Silicon Valley, it's okay in the government, right? So take it public and don't hide it. And tell the story. Market what you're doing. Whether it's doing things like this and going out and talking to people, or whether it's doing articles, or whether it's doing press conferences, or whether it's putting ads like this on your buses. It adds up and it sends a message. If Coca-Cola and Apple can do it, we can do it with active transportation. And leverage technology. Multimodal screens, apps, bike share apps, all of those things are important to people. And then setting goals with the public, not just in a vacuum, and delivering on them is really, really important to build credibility. We also talked a lot today. We had a session earlier at DLA Piper with a lot of very important people. And we're talking about the value of pilots. Pilots are hugely important. And the nice thing about a pilot is you can admit that you don't totally know the answer to the question. You can say, look, we're not sure, but we'd like to try this. We know it's going to be safer than what we have now, right? We're going to try it. We're going to use paint. We're going to use plastic bollards. It'll cost us 20 or 30 grand. Maybe you even get, like on the Kinsey bike lane, we had SRAM throw in 15 grand and green paint. But you go out there and try it, and my argument is it's more responsible to try something before you do the full-scale implementation than to do some massive RFP and spend millions and millions and millions of dollars and have it not work. So, access versus ownership service models, embracing those and letting the private sector do their thing. Setting the tone, and I think governors and the mayor in particular set the tone. Private sector partners are incentivized. So a real public-private partnership, both entities have skin in the game, and both stand to win or lose something. And with bike share, I think that's been a very successful model. Now we may get to a point in the future where bike share being completely funded privately and operated privately works, but I think we're still experimenting with that model. Right now, I think the mixed model really works well. Make high return investments. Focus on how profitable is that investment, or is it going to have a significant impact that we want? And all too often, these decisions are made for political reasons, or sort of parochial political reasons. Somebody wants us here or there. That's not good enough. The last one, I stole that from Richard Branson. But I do think at some point you got to get off the dime and just do something. It doesn't matter what the particular topic is. It's better to go out, experiment, and fail than to just plan, and not do anything. And I think sometimes in all of our cities, we face that. There's too many plans on the shelves, and there's not enough implementing. And it's because government is a culture of no, and a culture of fear generally. And if the leaders at the top say, you know what, it's okay. And actually Richard Branson again tells a great story about how he had his designer, who was on board with Virgin, redesign all the interiors of the airplanes. They started to roll it out. It was a complete disaster. So normally what you do is you fire that person. You get somebody in that knows what they're doing. Instead, he kept the guy and he said, I want you to learn from your mistakes. This costs us tens of millions of dollars, maybe more than that. I want you to fix it. And the guy is forever, he fixed it. They have wonderful interiors, and the guy's like he is devoted to working for Virgin. And I think it's the same thing. People like me need to motivate people, let people make mistakes in their jobs, and not just sort of throw people down the stairs if they make a mistake. So when your team knows that you have their back, they will go to the end of the earth for you. And I've definitely learned that. Understanding your budget is key, and what are your levers for getting that money and making it work for you. Hire the trait versus the skill. So when Adrian Fenty hired me, he hired me because he liked my energy. He certainly didn't hire me for my background in transit and government, because I would have been an F. And I do the same thing. I hire people with high energy that I know will work and learn and make things happen. I already talked about embracing the pilot. And what I try to get my folks to do, well, first of all, we set SMART goals, so time-sensitive goals. So they have to actually accomplish things. But instead of saying no, which is often what you hear, say, yeah, let's explore that. How would you do it? Versus just, no, that's a bad idea. Like, let people come to you with even their worst ideas. But you get all the worst ideas and you throw them on a board, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes you get a great idea out of it. And also, one last thing, it's the lay people that have the best ideas, it's not the experts. I'm now considered an expert, which scares the hell out of me, because that's when you've sort of jumped the shark. It's the people that come to the meeting that don't know anything about transportation. I just met a guy who's starting a new bus company who has ridden the bus, and that's the extent of his experience. And his bus idea is way better than anything I've seen in transit. And there's a whole lot of business models out there, public-private partnerships and parking, car sharing, bike sharing, that are going to change things. And with the exponential change we're going to see over the next few years, for those of you that are in government, if you don't embrace it, you will not have a role in it. That's what's going to happen. You will be, to use an analogy, you can either drive the bus or be at least next to the guy driving the bus, or you can be under the bus. And I'm not saying that to be negative, but from a public policy standpoint, we have an opportunity right now to shape the way these services roll out in our city, including autonomous vehicles, which will be here by 2019. So we should be partnering with the private sector instead of fighting them. And get ready for the future. It's going to be fun. Thanks. All right, I'm sorry, I took way too long. So we have 10 minutes. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Gabe. It's wonderful to have you here. You're a legend in the industry. And
thank you.
I ask you,
definitely jumped the shark.
Why doesn't everybody introduce themselves too? Sure. My name is David Murphy. I'm president of a group called Angelos Against Gridlock. And I just want to ask you, in Chicago and D.C., how have the community, the nonprofit community, you mentioned the Active Transportation Alliance, been supportive? I mean, we're so lucky here to have ULI and FAST and a lot of groups working, but there's so much reception amongst some in the business community, amongst some in cities like Beverly Hills that frankly get in the way of progress. And what have the Active Transportation Alliance groups that groups here perhaps could do to help you support you?
Excuse me. Sorry. Active Trans is a great organization. They have like 52 staffers, at least at their height. I'm not sure what they have now with budget cuts. So whether it's them or the Metropolitan Planning Council or even the MPO, which we have a very good relationship with, those things are so important. Like, it takes a village to build a bike lane, I always joke, but it does. And the Active Trans folks have relationships in the business community with progressive people that are in very powerful positions. I mean, there were op-ed pieces written in the Tribune by like the head of DRW Trading, which is a big company, saying, we need to support bike facilities because my people that work for me and the people I want to draw to my business, that's what they want. And so I think they're absolutely crucial. With a streetcar in DC, it was the same thing. It was the business community and the developers, the ULI folks, that really helped make it happen. Otherwise, it's just the government talking, and that's very discounted by the business community. So to try to be brief, it's absolutely key. Yes?
Jonathan Netler, I'm managing editor of the planning website called Planetizen. I know in several cities, I have a bike share question. In several cities, I'm not going to name names, have had issues in rolling out their bike share with ensuring that the systems serve disadvantaged neighborhoods, which obviously obviously are some of the places that can really benefit from low-budget transportation options. And I know that some of the barriers are things like no locations, credit cards, to purchase trips and memberships. And so I'm just wondering, better or worse is behind the curve on rolling out bike share. As LA looks to plan its system, how can it avoid some of the pitfalls that have fallen other cities and ensure equitable bike share?
Well, I'll say, nobody's completely figured this out. There isn't like a model that's set in stone that works. But I'll say in New York, they've got a discounted membership that's about, well, soon it'll be about 50% or more less than the regular membership. DC has a program with Ally Bank and another bank to bank the unbanked, which is really the core problem, is that people don't have a bank account or a Visa card. And so I think that's really what needs to be addressed, is how to get people bank accounts. Once you have a Visa card, it's only like $100 deposit, so it's not huge, right? I mean, these same folks probably have trouble using Zipcar or renting a car from Hertz, right? Because you can't pay cash, you got to have some sort of deposit. So I think that's the core problem. I think that a lot of cities are committed to figuring it out. I think New York will put a lot of effort into it under the new mayor.